As an absolute noob, I was astonished when I realized that I can enjoy the popular hobby of boating for $500. And my ideal budget beginner boat was cheap, relatively maintenance free, easy to use, and stable/safe. Now, I might not be the fastest on the water, but certainly draw the most interest. We're talking about small plastic pontoon boats. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking, trust me, and just stick around until the end before you pass up this opportunity to enjoy what we all love. Listen, trust me, once I heard plastic, I laughed myself until I bought one. And for $500? Let's dive in. First, we're looking used. You can buy a new, but you'll pay about $800 and without a motor for these particular boats. Now, these things are tanks, practically unsinkable as long as there are no holes. It's good enough. I mean, really, any used plastic pontoon boat is going to be good enough. Now, we're looking for a group of very, very similar tiny boats, likely created in the same factory that go by these names. The Pond Prowler from Bass Pro, that's personally what I have. And then you've got the Quest Angler from Dick's Sporting Goods, that is the exact carbon copy. You've got Bass Raiders at Academy, but there's so many more brands like Bass Buster, Baby Bass, Sun Dolphin, there's 1,000. And I personally use Facebook Marketplace. And the cool thing about Facebook Marketplace is you can simply type in pond boats and plastic boats into the marketplace search bar and you'll get additional options. Craigslist is a close second for me in terms of good deals on these boats. Now, personally, I got the Pond Prowler 2 used for $300, and mine had probably $100 already in upgrades. You see, the great thing about buying used is that most of the creature comforts have been installed by the previous owner, making it an even more valuable deal. Mine came with upgraded boat seats, pull handles, paddle with kayak paddle holder, as well as a battery and motor, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I purchased that with the boat for an additional $80, bringing my total to $380 to get on the water. Okay, well, we've completed the cheap part of the beginner budget boat checklist. Cheap has been knocked off. It doesn't get much cheaper than this. I mean, these are cheaper than fishing kayaks, folks. That is what's so awesome about this. I see a lot of tiny boat videos, but they're all like $3,500, 10 grand. You know, the polycrafts and the yak killers and all this different stuff. That is too much. This is perfect. Now, I've literally dragged mine all over, and so did the guy before me, and so did the guy before him. I take mine in the ocean with white caps and wind. I modify mine constantly because it's cheap to do, and yet I've spent zero time on maintenance. You see, due to the plastic, wood, and foam design, these things are practically unsinkable tanks. I watched a guy try to sink it, and it literally wouldn't even work. It's just all foam and plastic. Although, maybe that's a challenge for another day. We might try to sink one, but somebody else's boat, of course. It's plastic, so the salt water doesn't hurt it at all. It does have individual drain plugs on the bow of each of the pontoons, so you can drain any water that you take on, which I've literally never done. Also, it has an interior drain plug on the stern for water accumulation inside the boat, but we've rarely ever had to do that either. In fact, only after rainstorms when I left it out, but now I keep it inside. So this checks out the relatively maintenance-free or absolutely maintenance-free off the list. All you gotta do, really, the only maintenance is I don't even wash it down. I just leave it. I wipe it down every once in a while when it gets too dirty. But here's the only maintenance you're gonna do. You're gonna charge the battery, you're gonna drain things when they need to be drained, and you'll be boating for years. A lot of people say that these tiny plastic boats don't last very long, but my plastic boat is pretty old. I've seen literally these pond prowlers. They've been making them for decades. And I've seen some, early 90s models that are still completely fishable. All right. So next up is ease of use. Now, the boat is very easy to use because the rest of my $500 boat budget was for my method of propulsion. The trolling motor and battery I got for $80. So trolling motors work perfectly for these. Although you can put in a gas outboard, which I'm really thinking about, but I want that new Newport outboard, the electric 3 horsepower. That looks really interesting anyway. So they're no speed demons due to the pontoon hole, but trolling motors plug directly into the battery and you're off. So I bought that boat for a total of $380 with the motor, and I was boating the next day. Just charge the battery after every other trip or so, depending on how many amp hours you have. You can see all of my boat links, everything in my boat, including my battery and motor in the link below if you're interested. So I got the trolling motor for $80 with the battery, like I said, and any trolling motor that looks decently, in half decent shape works great, as long as it works fine and it's no big deal, that's perfect. Oftentimes, they come with batteries as a bundled deal, although make sure you know what you're buying. I bought a used kayak trolling motor and a marine jump start battery. Was the absolute opposite setup I needed. It was a disaster, and I lost all propulsion 100 yards from the boat ramp. Deep cycle batteries, folks. Deep cycle. Now, quickly, I just want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, and thanks to them for keeping this tiny boat series afloat. Thank you to EmpireDigest.com. They help regular people build and grow thriving online businesses so they can live their best life possible. They are part of an elite community of highly successful internet entrepreneurs on a mission to help regular everyday people break free from mediocrity and create the best life possible. Sounds similar to this channel. They're doing this by helping you start and grow highly successful, location-independent online businesses that provide unlimited income potential and time freedom, and the ability to turn your dreams into reality faster than anything else that you've tried. Take advantage right now by clicking the first link in my description. Now, let's move into the last part of today's episode, and that would be, checking off the easy to use, but let's talk about why these are so safe and stable and unique. Now, the reason these boats are so unique is, I used to have a flat bottom and it was not very stable, but it's because these boats are not flat bottom boats, and that's the key. That's why they're so beginner friendly. They're actually pontoon boats. This means they're weirdly stable in a way that doesn't make sense for a boat of its size. And the chair designs are perfectly designed for comfort and range of movement. What led me this way over a similarly sized aluminum John for similar prices was the fact that this is pretty hard to make dangerous. In our flat bottom boats and with John boats, you have to worry about, both people leaning to a certain size if you're overloaded and walking around. But this boat, I can just kind of go wherever I want, stand up, wander around, and I never have to have the thought of, I can't lean this way, I can't put my foot here. I'm just focusing on the beauty. I'm just focusing on what I like to do, which is fishing. I'm just focusing on hanging out with my wife. And it's like I said, pretty hard to make dangerous and uncomfortable. It's slow, it's stable, and it forces you to stay in the middle. Flat bottoms list to one or the other side when you're not paying attention. With my Prowler, I just think about what I'm doing and going to do next. Never am I taking up brain power worrying about me or my wife falling in. My wife and I, we often anchor and then we lean off the same side of the boat with our feet hanging over. Sometimes we're standing and there's no issues. However, we are relatively light, so keep that in mind. My wife likes to sit down when she fishes, and I prefer standing. I've never gotten that oh shit feeling I'm sure you're worried about. When you lean too far in a chair and you feel like you've gone past the point of no return. I've done that in flat bottom boats. I've never done that here. The only thing you have to worry about is when you're standing, don't take too big of a step back in the wrong direction if you're trying to get a fish, because you will trip over the edge and fall in. Although, I've had that feeling a couple times. That's my fault from just getting too in the moment, but it's never happened. And I've never had to get wet or catch myself. It's usually just, my foot stopped. I'm not going to put any more momentum going back. So I checked all the boxes on my list, being cheap, maintenance-free, safe, and easy to use. And all for under $500. In fact, it's actually $380. However, the rest of your $500 budget could be spent on registering your boat, which I didn't do, paddles, lights, a horn, and PDF or life jacket for roughly $80, bringing us completely water ready, completely legal, and safe for a beginner at only $460. Maybe spend the extra $40 on a combo from Walmart and get yourself into fishing. I've seen worse deals than this, things going for much higher, and I've seen much, much better deals. In fact, someone picked up a Prowler on the Facebook group today for $80. Are you kidding me? You could make so much money and then buy another boat if you wanted to on that one. But I figure on average, for the average person and boat, depending on where you are in the country, it will equal about $500. Some people might pay $600 and some people might pay $80. Since I've dumped hundreds of more dollars, and not thousands, but a few $100 making it into an epic fishing rig, I will be coming out with an even cooler, complete boat build under $1,000, and that video will be coming very soon. Thanks again to Empire Digest, and happy boating.